All right, it's time for Newsroom, where we talk about issues that affect the media industry and journalists, we journalists. And joining me in studio to dissect some of the issues, to my immediate left is Jen Godia, who is a media communication expert. Thank you very much for coming here. And next to her is William Ouma, who's the Director of Journalism for Human Rights International. Next to him is Eric Odwor, who is the Secretary General of Kenya Union for Journalists. And last but not least is Patrick Gathara, who is a journalist. Thank you very much for making time to join us here on Morning Express. So the latest issue is on 7th of January of this year. This month, actually, just a few days ago, we had one journalist from Nation being threatened by the Deputy President's spokesman. And of course, we have him on camera, and of course we even have quotes of what the spokesman said. Ukitaka kufutwa kazi, utafutwa. Maybe we can just start with that. What are your comments on this? I'll start with you, Jane.
I think those who threaten journalists don't understand the importance of freedom of speech or the work that journalists do. Journalists are mere messengers of issues that are taking place across the country. They basically get information from other people, which they verify and then they transmit. So for one to simply start threatening journalists because of something that maybe the boss or they feel is not right or sitting well with their boss is actually not right. And as an agent for social transformation, media remains key in this country because the media will educate, the media will inform. The media is actually a moderator of things and an advocate and standing in for the public, because then not everybody can be in the studio or not everybody can transmit their information. So the media then plays that role. And threatening a journalist, and we've seen it started even towards the end of last year with the elections, and there was a lot of violence towards journalists, which then it's important that as the industry, we need to address.
All right. I'll come to you, William. What are your thoughts on this?
It's unfortunate that the threats are coming from people who have been in the media, especially in this case, and people who are supposed to understand our Constitution, 33, 34, 35, but the journalist is just performing his duty, and we don't see why he should be threatened, especially a threat coming from somebody who is holding a responsible position in the public service. It's a high time the government, because government has obligation under UN charters to protect and create a conducive environment for journalists. It's a high time action was taken against such people.
Eric, what are your comments on this?
Yeah, of course, I already made my position known to this matter because number one, David Mugonyi is not an amateur in the field of journalism. He is a senior journalist. He has been in the media. We worked with him for several years. And therefore, whatever he was trying to do, we can just put into a larger context of what's happening in the office of the Deputy President. You can see there's a lot of stories right now coming from out of office of the Deputy President, William Ruto. So that means that there's a lot of activities that are happening there, probably which are not palatable to them. So I believe that using intimidation and harassment could be just one of the strategies that are being used by that office. I've just seen when you are doing a newspaper review, I remember there's a headline in one of the newspapers where members of parliament have defied Deputy President when he wanted them to withdraw and resign from several committees. And so that means they're being coerced, they're being intimidated just to take that action. So to me, I believe that it's just a strategy that is being employed in the office of the Deputy President to make things move.
All right, Patrick, you're a journalist. Have you faced such? Before you give us your comment.
Well, not really. I mean, I wouldn't say that I have been threatened with being fired. Any of a freelance most of the time, so that doesn't apply to me. Although on this topic, while it is completely unacceptable that somebody from the executive would be threatening to fire journalists, I think we've got to ask about who would do the firing.
Okay.
The deputy president doesn't own the Standard. He's not going. He's going to make a call to somebody at the Standard or at the Nation. And make this happen. We've seen this happen before. And that tells us something about the complicity of the media itself in allowing its own journalists to be threatened. We've seen at the Nation they fired Galava, one of their top editors, because he wrote an editorial that the president didn't like.
Yes.
We've seen Gado gotten rid of. We've seen 3 journalists in the Standard who wrote about the cabinet meeting at the Mount Kenya Safari Club a few years back. Get fired. In fact, the editor was summoned to State House before that firing happened. So the media has been very complicit in sort of not protecting its journalists, but in kowtowing to the pressures of the state. And until, I think, within media houses, the top bosses within media houses, media owners and top editors learn to stand up to government, to tell them this is not acceptable and to protect their own journalists, then, all we'll be playing is this game where they scapegoat the government, but they are in league with them in allowing for their own people to be threatened.
All right. Jen, he's talked about people being called all the way to State House so that they can be requested to fire someone. Is it right to say that the government is failing to guarantee the basic rights of citizens? Not only are journalists citizens, but they also, they have a right to expression, freedom of expression. What are your thoughts on this?
The government or the state is supposed to defend its citizens, irrespective of where they are operating from, be they journalists or whatever careers they hold. But journalists remain in a tricky place, like they are between a rock and a hard place. They have to convey information. And looking at the media or the communication representatives in State House, they are basically people who previously worked in newsrooms. They understand how newsrooms work. And when they advise for one to be summoned to State House, then that is basically taking away the rights of the media or of the journalist from doing their work. And this then, looking at our Constitution, we then wonder where these freedoms are. Look at the Bill of Rights. It basically speaks about freedoms. Freedom of equality, freedom of speech. And I think Kenyan journalists have been to countries where people speak. You wonder whether they were even trained. But Kenyan journalists actually are very, very responsible journalists in what they do. And summoning one to State House because of a story, yet there is the right of reply which media gives. Many media organizations will allow for right of reply if you think that something is wrong. So being summoned to State House could be, for me, the worst thing that could ever happen.
But, one thing you've got to ask is why do they go when they're summoned?
Exactly, that's the thing I was coming to.
And this is your senior editors, don't forget. So, blaming the state, yes, the state has a lot of blame to carry. But we really have to focus on our media houses.
Yes,
and the fact that when it suits them, they're very happy to kowtow to the state. And it's only later on that they start shouting press freedom. But they have been very complicit themselves in oppressing their own journalists, in creating a culture within newsrooms where there is no open discussion, debate, in ensuring, in self-censorship within our press. This is all happening inside newsrooms, inside media houses. And media has to take responsibility for that. If they want to change things, it's not just about always pointing at the state. And yes, the state bears its share of responsibility, but also looking at media houses themselves.
All right.
I think in several forums, including this program, we've talked about the state capture of the media. And looking at what has happened, the case you're talking about, the threats from David Mugonyi, that actually now confirms that actually the state has been trying or has been influencing some of the decision-making in the media houses, because it has always been just a matter of speculations and analysis that the state has been probably are trying to direct some of the decisions in the newsrooms. So given that this has happened, and also looking at the environment that journalists and the media houses are operating in, we have always said that the government has put in place several measures just to ensure that they are able to get their way into newsrooms. For example, like in this case, probably there is this tool now the government is using, which is advertising, and given that the government now has centralized advertisements in, of the government, or business in the government. So that means that the media houses are now being coerced, are also being pushed and intimidated, maybe probably to dance with the tune of the government. Yes. So that's why you can see some of these things are happening. So I probably was the way forward, at least now we can now face the state and tell the state that actually Mugonyi confirmed that some of the decisions that have been taken in the newsrooms actually being influenced by the government. Yes. Probably because earlier on, we were looking at it just as a speculation, but right now, at least we are now confirmed that some of the firing and the sackings that have taken place in this newsroom were actually influenced and demanded by the government. Because Mugonyi said very well that Wanga is not going to be the first person. This actually is going to take it. He has said that several journalists who have, yes. So that means that from now on, the responsibility of the media houses are to come out that probably some of the decisions we are taking, we are not doing them at the whims of the government, but based on our own capacity and our ability to evaluate the human resources that we have in the newsroom. All right.
William, let me come to you. My issue still stands. When you, as an editor, are called to State House, as one, you're a journalist. And then you go, you listen to what they're going to tell you, and you come back and fire your fellow journalists. Are you being right? Are you being genuine, true to your career, to your calling?
Yeah, you know, as Eric has said, there's this issue of state interference, direct interference now we can say, because there's a catch here where the media owners are told, if you don't do this, and then you're not going to get business. Yes. And then now the media owners, they look at, they weigh the situation. Do we protect our journalists and lose the business? And this is now a case where employers have to be taken to task by the Kenya Union of Journalists and other stakeholders who are involved in protection of journalists. Because this is now encouraging impunity, and we can see impunity now starting from the top. I would like to say that since Jubilee regime took over, impunity has been very high, especially cases of people in the government attacking journalists. And journalists have reported cases, but none, I think over 26 cases which have handled. Cases are reported, evidence is given, even on camera, and nobody has ever been prosecuted. Yes. Vis-a-vis cases of journalists who have been arrested on flimsy reasons, and they've been taken to court. Okay. Fortunately, nearly all of them have been acquitted because there's been no evidence. All right. So, Jen, then who is to blame? Because here we are saying the prosecutions are not being done the right way. And then here, on this other hand, we're seeing employers are left between a rock and a hard place. So what can we do?
You know, the challenge comes from even the issue of ownership. Yes. Most media houses are privately owned businesses. So who owns that media house? Okay. So ownership will also come to play a role, which then leads to censorship. You have to decide what will appear, what will not appear. But then when you are called when there is an issue with a story, we even have the Media Council Complaints Commission, which allows you to take your case there if you feel that you are wronged in a story. Okay. Why can't people take their complaints to the Media Council of Kenya, which was established with support from the government? I mean, this thing of bullying journalists so that stories are not told as they should be told is I think, for me, just unthinkable. And politicians, today they are on those seats, they are bullying. Next time they will be elected out, and they will want the person who is there, their stories to be told. So they should just allow journalists to do their work and to do it in a space that is as free as is possible. In this country, we have come from far. From 1963-64, when we got our independence, to where we are today. Somebody calling you because of a story, yet there are channels that they can use to air their grievances. And the management in media houses also must act to defend the journalists within their establishment. That is where the problem is. Okay. If you don't defend your journalists, they are going to be threatened left, right, and center. And it will even affect the quality of stories that we are bringing out. Yeah.
All right.
Actually, if you look at the mechanism we've developed for safety of journalists in this country and other parts of the world, it's very clear and how you can trace and know who has the responsibility to do what. And we talk about the 3 Ps, where we're talking about to protect, to prosecute, and to prevent. So you'll just see that who is supposed to prosecute? Obviously, the prosecutorial powers lies with the state. It's supposed to make sure that these people who attack journalists are actually prosecuted. Then who is supposed to prevent? Probably that is protect and prevent. Actually, the 2 Ps actually probably that's where now the media houses are supposed to come in and see what they are doing about that.
All right. We want to take a short break. Sorry, we want to take a short break here on Morning Express. But when we come back, we will discuss more and we'll get more into details on this issue. Don't go too far.